of the U.S. Air Force, General David Goldfein, and our distinguished Air Force service members.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us during this brief pause in the rain. This, I have to say, is a proud occasion for the Reagan Presidential Library. We're privileged to welcome this F-117 Nighthawk to its new home, where it will serve as a cornerstone of our growing Peace Through Strength exhibit. We're presenting the plane here in a place of honor at the Reagan Library because it has a special place in the Reagan legacy. This revolutionary aircraft was part of the historic overhaul of the United States military that began in President Reagan's first term. The weapons and platforms developed through that effort allowed the United States to emerge victorious in the Cold War, as Prime Minister Thatcher famously said, without firing a shot. Though long shrouded in secrecy, the F-117 was part of a show of strength that helped secure the peace. In that sense, the most remarkable part of its story may be the bombs that it never dropped. Looking at this plane, it is a triumph of aerospace design. And I'm no engineer, but I think the technical term is badass. In the coming years, this exhibit will educate millions of people who visit the Reagan Library. Guests from around the world will be introduced to the world's first stealth combat aircraft and the power of American innovation. We're pleased to be joined today by two people who know this plane and its power better than anyone. Lieutenant Colonel Scott Stempert, also known as Bandit 270. Scott piloted this F-17 for several years, and Rick Wright succeeded him as pilot. We're delighted to have them both here, and we thank them for their skill to assuring that it arrived here at the Reagan Library in one piece. This will always be your plane, but we assure you that we will take good care of it. The exhibit would not be possible without the support of the National Museum of the United States Air Force. On behalf of the Reagan Library, I'd like to extend our appreciation to the Secretary of the Air Force, Barbara Barrett, and invite her to say a few words.
Thanks so very much. Thank you very much. This really is a special occasion. It's fitting that we gather here at the Reagan Presidential Library, this metaphoric city on the hill, to unveil the F-117 Nighthawk, a visible reminder of President Reagan's mantra of peace through strength. President Ronald Reagan inspired America and America's friends worldwide. His outsized impact on America's national defense could be traced to his unflinching advocacy of the military. In his 8 years as Commander-in-Chief, the defense budget increased by 192%. He used these resources to fund programs like this formidable weapon. The F-117 Nighthawk is the epitome of innovation and successful collaboration between the United States Air Force and industry. In April 1976, the Air Force awarded Lockheed Martin a contract for the F-117's prototype called Have Blue. 31 short months later, this marvel was airborne. One of the Nighthawk's greatest moments was during Desert Storm. It was estimated that we would lose 5% of the F-117s launched during the first night. But thanks to stealth technology and extraordinary pilots, every aircraft came home safely. But only after having destroyed 49 Iraqi defense targets. That paved the way for the liberation of Kuwait. The arrival of the F-117 changed the calculus of war. Here's one measure. Planners stopped thinking about how many aircraft it took to destroy a target and began asking how many targets an aircraft could destroy. As you may know, General Dave Goldfein was among the last to become fully qualified to fly the F-117. He also commanded the only wing in the Air Force to pilot this astounding aircraft in combat. As a young commander in F-16 Squadron, he led his airmen into combat. His unit was known as the world's largest distributor of MiG parts. As a slightly older wing commander, he was ready to do it again in his 117. Dave was given the arduous job of transitioning the 49th Fighter Wing from the F-117 to the F-22, at the time one of the most challenging tasks around for a wing commander. Ladies and gentlemen, you're in for a treat. You're about to hear from a true American hero and an incomparable leader, my wingman and the Chief of Staff of the world's greatest Air Force, General David Goldfein.
Thanks, Madam Secretary. You know, our airmen have no better friend than their new secretary, and it's an honor to share the stage with you. So you know you're getting old when they start putting planes you actually flew on a pedestal. So we heard that every pilot that ever flew the F-117 was given a bandit number. And the first pilot was Major Al Whitley, and he was bandit 150. You see, we started with number 150 because we didn't want to give away to the enemy how many pilots were actually in the program. And only 558 pilots ever flew the F-117 operationally, and two we've talked about are here today, bandits 270 and 352. And as Secretary Barrett said, I was privileged to be the last bandit, number 708. And I will tell you the most fascinating part of flying the Black Jet, which is what we called her, was the opportunity to meet and spend time with the community of folks from Skunk Works and across the government who worked for years, shrouded in secrecy, to create the game-changing technology called stealth. I believe it stands today as the greatest secret our nation has ever kept. Think about this. For 9 years, pilots, maintainers, contractors, support personnel would gather at a small airport in North Las Vegas. And every Sunday afternoon, they'd quietly fly north to Tonopah Airfield. And for a week, they would live like bats, sleeping during the day and flying all night, only to return home to their families on Friday night. Rinse, wash, repeat for 9 years. The entire time, families had no idea what mom or dad did or where they were. Cover stories became the norm, and they held. And everyone was issued tie pins, like these gentlemen are wearing, with the Nighthawk symbol. The eye of the bird was red for pilots and gray for all others. And so the ROE was, if they saw each other on weekends in Vegas, they would acknowledge with a slight head nod and then quickly separate, so nobody could put two and two together or possibly say something that might compromise the story. It's the only top secret program I know of that had another top secret program as its cover. Because as now we know, we had Soviet MiGs in our inventory that we were also flying in North Las Vegas. And if you see Hawk Carlisle, ask him about jumping out of one of those airplanes. It's a hell of a story. So most of us thought the secret would last maybe 2-3 years tops. Who knew it would maintain its Manhattan Project level of secrecy for almost a decade? The greatest secret we've ever kept. But I'll also tell you, I found inspiration in how the Black Jet came to be and what it means to all of us today as we continue to bring game-changing technology to the battlefield. You see, the story starts just 30 miles away in Burbank. Dennis Oberholzer, a young Skunk Works engineer, so his idea of a good time on weekends was reading journals, technical journals, translated from other languages. So he's reading this Russian journal, and he finds a math equation for what we now call stealth. And he walks into Ben Rich, the CEO at Skunk Works, and he puts a model, a wooden carving that he'd carved in his shed, of what resembles a Hope diamond. And Ben looks up and he says, well, what's that? He says, well, this will return the radar cross-section of an eagle's eye. And Ben responded, well, you mean an eagle? He said, no, an eagle's eye. And then, as captured in the famous book Skunk Works, Ben looked at him and said, "Well, can you get it airborne?" And Ben said, "How hard could it be?" So they started working on it. And then Ben Rich came to the Pentagon, and he spoke to the Chief of Staff of the Air Force and the Secretary of Defense. And he pulled a marble out of his jacket pocket, and he rolled it across the table towards the Secretary. And the Secretary asked him, "What's that?" And Ben Rich said, "It's the radar cross-section of what I'm about to build you." And the rest is history. If it wasn't for the intellectual curiosity of Dennis Overholtzer, or the determination of Ben Rich, or the willingness of a Secretary of Defense and a Chief of Staff to make a bet, our nation might not have had the critical capabilities that served us for so many years. So what an honor to be here to share this moment as we establish this remarkable aircraft, the first operational stealth fighter in its rightful place here at President Reagan's library. Because the F-117 story is one for all of us to remember. Because just as they did, we got to be prepared to work side by side with industry to take chances and place bets on the technology that ensures that we win. What a fitting tribute to audacity, vision, and pure guts. That should inspire everyone who walks by here and sees this for years to come. And for all of us, let the marbles roll. It's now my honor to introduce the current CEO of Skunk Works, Jeff Babione.
General Goldfein, thank you. Secretary Barrett, thank you for joining us today. It's such a great honor to be here, and there's no better place than the Reagan Library to share the phrase made popular by President Reagan himself, and we display proudly at our largest facility at Lockheed Martin, peace through strength, lots of strength. The F-117 represents the strength of American innovation, the strength of the U.S. Air Force, and the strength of what we can achieve when we work together. I speak for the entire Lockheed Martin team when I tell you the pride we have for this aircraft. From development to first flight in just 31 months, a feat made possible by a unique partnership with our U.S. government. It's the world's first operational stealth aircraft, developed in complete secrecy by the Skunk Works. So good was its radar cross-section that it was referred to as the black hole in the sky. The aircraft was nearly impossible to detect. In fact, it has laid the foundation for the 5th generation stealth technology that we now use on the F-35. As soon as we learned the U.S. Air Force's plan to put the aircraft on permanent loan here at the library, we knew we had to be involved. The Skunk Works team completed the restoration in just a little over 100 days. An unforgettable effort because we see the F-117 as revolutionary. A secret program worked quickly and quietly. An excellent example of our country's drive to innovate. Our mission is yours, and we will never stop developing breakthrough technologies. As a permanent display here at the Reagan Library, the 117 will help educate a new generation of Americans, inspiring young people to become engineers, mathematicians, and scientists. Our enduring partnership brought about the F-117 Nighthawk, as well as many other transformational aircraft. And together, they have enabled U.S. air power to shape the world. I simply want to end by saying thank you to the Lockheed Martin team who restored this aircraft, and to our team around the world, and to our service members and veterans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff, and to the team at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. General, Madam Secretary, how about we cut the ribbon?